In 1965, a country was kicked out, live on TV. No resources, no army, no future. Today, it's richer than most of the world. After World War II ended in 1945, a young man named Lee Kuan Yew left Singapore to study law at Cambridge. He returned in 1950 with his wife, and less than a decade later, in 1959, he became Prime Minister. In 1963, Lee made a bold gamble. He merged Singapore with Malaysia. But there was a problem. Malaysia was dominated by UMNO, a party that gave special privileges to ethnic Malays. Singapore, on the other hand, was mostly Chinese. And Lee believed in something dangerous: a nation with no racial privileges. In 1964, tensions exploded. Riots broke out between Malays and Chinese in the streets of Singapore. In 1965, Lee stood in the Malaysian parliament, speaking Malay better than many of its own politicians. He challenged the system. He challenged UMNO. He challenged racial privilege itself. Weeks later, the vote came in. 126-0. Singapore was expelled. Lee was devastated. It was the first time in history that a country became independent against its own will. And then, he did something no one expected. While other leaders chose nationalism and expelled foreign companies, Lee did the opposite. He opened Singapore completely. Low taxes, minimal bureaucracy, total stability. Global giants like Texas Instruments, HP, and General Electric moved in. Even abandoned British shipyards came back to life. But Lee didn't stop there. He made English the official language of education in a country of Chinese, Malays, and Indians. Why? To connect Singapore to the global economy and force different ethnic groups to communicate. He doubled government salaries with one simple idea: pay well so you don't need corruption. Then he created the CPIB, an anti-corruption agency that could investigate anyone. At the time, 75% of Singapore lived in slums. So he built public housing at massive scale, moving families into clean apartments with water and electricity. Because he believed, people who own homes don't start revolutions. Singapore also depended on Malaysia for 90% of its water. So Lee invested for decades in reservoirs, recycling, and desalination. Today, Singapore is not only self-sufficient, it exports water technology to the world. In 1965, Singapore's GDP per capita was just $516. When Lee stepped down in 1990, after 31 years, it had reached $12,000. In 2024, over $94,000, higher than the United States, Japan, and much of Europe. Today, Singapore ranks among the best in the world in education, leading global rankings in math, science, and reading. Safer, cleaner, richer. In 2015, Lee Kuan Yew died at 91. Over 2 million people went to his funeral. People who had been born in a country that didn't exist before him. A nation that was never supposed to survive, became one of the greatest success stories in history. But here's the real question. Was it worth it? Strict laws, total control, and zero tolerance, or one of the greatest success stories ever built? What do you think?